The Last of Us show. We all heard of it. It's been everywhere these past few weeks. The show is based on one of my favorite video games of all time, that being The Last of Us Part 1. With Season 1 being finished, now I find that it's the perfect time to address the show and say what I like and dislike about it. This is my opinion on The Last of Us show. Spoilers ahead. Now, like I said, this show is based on The Last of Us 1, so I'm gonna compare both quite a bit. I know the show is supposed to be a little different, but when a show does a show based on a game, comparison is pretty normal. The season starts off very well. I like the fact that we see things from Sarah's point of view, like in the game, but here we see a lot more than we did see in the game. Sarah's actress Nico Parker did an amazing job. I also think that by seeing more of Sarah, the impact of when she dies is a lot stronger than in the game. Now, of course, I'm not criticizing the game for that. I understand that the process of making a game and making a show are very different, and there are certain things that you can only see in either the game or the show. I also think that the casting was pretty good. I liked the first episode a lot. It set the tone very well for newcomers to the Last of Us world and even to longtime fans of the games. An example I can use is the scene of the kid going into the Boston QZ, but they find out that he's infected and they have to off the kid. And that's a scene that sets this dark tone for how bad the fungus really is. I like the fact that they confirmed that Joel and Tess were indeed a couple. In the game, I mean, we kinda knew already, but here it's a lot more in your face. Like when they showed them cuddling in bed together, that's something that we didn't see in the game, and I quite liked it. It adds more to their characters. We also get introduced to Ellie a lot sooner than in the game, and I liked it as well. We get to see what she was doing before meeting with Joel, and it's a nice change. Also, I just want to mention that I think Bella Ramsey did a pretty good job as Ellie. I saw a lot of people criticize her more for her looks than anything, but first off, if you want a 14-year-old character to be attractive, that says a lot about you. It's pretty weird. And secondly, I don't understand the problem people have with her. She was Ellie for me. She felt like Ellie for me. I never once got the vibe that she felt different to Ellie. So yeah, I think she did a good job and I liked her. Now, like I said, I understand that some things are going to be different, but I felt like removing the scene where Joel and Tess interrogate Robert was a bad decision. We see less from Joel being this badass that we all know and love, and it took away from that aspect of his character. And it's not the only time that the show does that. In later episodes they do that as well, but I'll talk more about that later. Moving on to episode 2, it started off pretty slow apart from the intro scene of the lady doctor talking, but apart from that, yeah, it did start off pretty slow, but that's fine because we got a lot of dialogue between Joel, Tess, and Ellie, so it's fine. I love the way that they made the infected a lot more dangerous than they were in the game. Like in the show, if you accidentally step in the wrong place, like you could wake up dozens of infected that are gonna come right for you because they know where you are. That's pretty terrifying. I mean, as if they weren't terrifying enough, they had to make them even more. That's a change that I can appreciate, and it was very good. The clicker scene is a perfect example of the infected being more dangerous. I mean, 2 clickers almost killed Joel, Tess, and Ellie. That shows how those fuckers mean business in this show. My favorite scene this episode was the scene of Joel and Ellie talking on top of that building. You all know which one I'm talking about. It was exactly like it was in the game and it was incredible. We get to see Joel being reminded of Sarah, and it makes a scene of just 2 people talking be so sad because we know the backstory behind Joel's emotions. Tessa's death scene was okay. I mean, the game scene felt a lot more emotional. Here, it's a bit like Joel was disgusted of Tess, while in the game he wanted to fight and stay with her. Here, he just kind of dips, and Ellie is the one who wants to stay and fight. So for me, that kind of takes away from what they told us in the first episode from their relationship. I feel like he would have a lot more emotion than Joel when leaving a loved one, but that's just me. Episode 3 starts off with more dialogue between Joel and Ellie while they're going to Billstown, and it's nice. It's always nice to see dialogue between our main characters, so no complaint. It was pretty good. I like that we see Bill just after the outbreak started and how he managed to maintain his town and everything. His town here is a lot smaller than in the game, but I kind of prefer it this way because it makes more sense on how he's able to maintain just a couple of houses and stuff, while in the game his town was fucking huge. We also see Frank here. Some people may not remember him in game because his role is a lot less explored, while here this episode is basically all about him and Bill. We see their relationship develop in the show and everything, and I quite liked it. It was a wholesome episode about these two. In game, we see that Frank hung himself because he got bitten while trying to steal from Bill and leaving his town. It's a lot sadder and darker because it's also revealed to us that Frank actually hated Bill in the game, while here it's a lot happier, as happy as it can be for this universe at least. I don't really know which one I prefer between the game or the show. I do like some dark storytelling, but I also like happy stories and endings, so I don't know, it's kind of 50-50 for me. Also, for the people who didn't know, Bill is alive and well in the game, while in the show he dies. But yeah, I just wanted to put that out there for people who didn't know. Episode 4 again starts off with more Joel and Ellie dialogue. Again, great. We see that comedic scene between them in the car where Ellie took a couple of things from Bill's town and some explicit magazines and everything, and yeah, that scene was hilarious, just like in the game. Then they get attacked by bandits, and like in the game, Joel knows it's a trap. I like that they kept that there. But again, Joel felt less badass than his game counterpart. I get they were trying to make it more realistic, but I don't know. In the last two episodes, they made Joel the true badass that he was, so I don't know why they didn't do it in the earlier episodes. But again, that's just me. We also get a bit more of a backstory between what in the game were just bandits. Here we see a whole community of people and everything. I like that. Kathleen was an okay antagonist, nothing really special about her, but her story with her and Henry was already setting up the whole revenge thing that part 2 explored on. So we are already seeing a revenge story here, which I don't know how I feel about that. I wasn't a fan of The Last of Us Part 2, but I can appreciate this change because it's already kind of planting the seed about all that. I also like how Henry and Sam were introduced in the show. I still prefer how the game did it, because again, it kind of took away from Joel's badassness. Is that a word? Whatever. But it was fine. It was a good way to introduce them. Episode 5 for me was the best episode of the show's first season. We see Henry and Sam's backstories, and we get told the reason that Kathleen's community was hunting them down. And I liked it. It adds more to their characters, but more specifically to Henry. Another change here is that Sam is younger than he was in the game and he's deaf. The change is another one which I'm kind of 50-50 on because we missed out on quite a bit of dialogue between Ellie and Sam, which is a shame because their dialogue in the game was one of my favorite things about this chapter. I also felt like they were trying to make Ellie's sexuality a lot more obvious. I mean, I know that in game she's confirmed to be a lesbian, but I felt like she also kind of had a bit of a crush on Sam in the game. I don't know if it's just me that felt that way though, but yeah. I like the sniper scene, but again, Joel felt less badass than in the game. I'm gonna keep mentioning it because it really bothered me. Yeah, he was trying to spare him and everything, I just didn't like it. Now, the infected versus Kathleen's community scene was amazing. We see a lot of infected here, and we see just how dangerous they are. I mean, Kathleen's community was pretty well armed, and even with that, they could not stop a horde from completely wiping them out. It was an incredible scene. And also, we see Joel's panic when Ellie gets trapped in the car with the child clicker. That was a nice detail. This scene is amazing. Finally, the scene that everyone knows, Henry and Sam's death. It was a very sad scene, just like in the game. Sad in a good storytelling kind of way, but nothing more to say about this scene. I mean, it was like in the game, and it was a very sad scene. Rest in peace, Henry and Sam. Amazing characters. In episode 6, we finally get to see Jackson. I like this change because in the game we don't see Jackson, we see a hydroelectric plant that the Jackson community took over, but here we see the town and everything, and it was nice. Tommy and Joel's reunion was really good. I loved it, especially because I watched the show with my brother, so every time we get to see a brotherly scene in a show or a movie, it adds bonus points for both of us. Another detail this episode is that we got to see Dina a lot earlier. It was a very small cameo, but it's the little details that make a great show. The best scene in this episode is the scene where Joel thinks that he saw Sarah, but it's just someone who looks like her, and it gave me the feeling of like, this is what Sarah would have been if she hadn't died, and it got me right in the heart. Man, this scene was amazing. You can really see Joel's emotions in this. Pedro Pascal's acting in this scene was incredible. Another amazing scene that is actually pretty close to being the best in this episode is when Joel is explaining to Tommy that he's scared of losing Ellie because he doesn't feel like he's in the best shape to protect her and he's getting older and everything. That's a pretty good scene as well. It came pretty close to the Sarah lookalike scene. And now for the famous bedroom scene. Now, this would have been the best scene in the episode if it was like in the game. But the dialogue here felt a little robotic in a way. Sometimes, like Pedro would say his lines a bit fast, and Bella just didn't have a lot of emotion to her before she started shouting at Joel. So yeah, a bit robotic. Joel and Tommy's goodbye scene was also pretty good, and you got yourself some more brotherly bonus points, HBO. Congrats. After they left Jackson, Joel and Ellie were looking for the Firefly camp, and they came across another group of 4 men who tried to attack them. Joel ended up getting stabbed, contrary to the game where he was impaled by a rusty pole. Nice change as well, but again, Joel didn't feel as badass as in the game. Sorry, last time I mentioned it, I swear. Moving on to episode 7, which is basically based on the Left Behind DLC, and this episode is amazing as well. I love the fact that we got to see more about Ellie's time at Federal School. This episode is basically just the Left Behind DLC, like I said before, which is amazing, so of course I expected this episode to also be pretty good. We get to see some tiny differences from the game and the show, which is also nice. One change that I really liked is that in the game they cannot play the arcade because it didn't have power, but in the show the arcade did have power and they played Mortal Kombat, which I thought was a very nice change, and since I also love Mortal Kombat, well, they got some more bonus points there. They also had this episode be a little more political than in the game, which I also like because we get to see both Ellie and Riley's opinions regarding the Fireflies. The dance scene between Ellie and Riley was also pretty good. I actually would have preferred it without the masks, just like in the game. But I love this scene regardless. I mean, the music and just them having fun before shit hits the fan. It's the best scene in the episode for me. Then, when shit does hit the fan and they get bitten, I love their acting here. Their reactions felt very real, and it was amazing, and again very sad, because we know that Ellie's immune, but Riley isn't, so we can guess where this is going. With episode 8, we get introduced to The Last of Us's creepiest antagonist, David. And just like every other plot in the show, we get a little more background than in the game on who we're actually dealing with. David is some kind of cult leader, and he takes advantage of people's religious beliefs to manipulate them. We also get told in the show that he used to be a teacher, which just adds even more to him being a creepy motherfucker. I can't decide which one is creepier, him in the game or in the show. In the show, he has a friendlier face, but I don't know if that adds more to him being creepier or not, because he's hiding his sick and twisted ideas behind a friendly face. So yeah. We then get to see Joel finally, after 8 episodes, being the badass that he truly is, with him even being really hurt, being able to take down 3 armed men. His interrogation scene is incredibly well done and loyal to the game. I was afraid that with them making Joel a bit softer that he would find out Ellie's location some other way, but I'm very happy that they kept the interrogation scene in. And the scene in the cafeteria with Ellie and David facing off was pretty good as well. David said some lines that made him even more creepy. Seriously, fuck this dude. He's a great antagonist, but really, fuck this dude. And finally, the reunion with Joel and Ellie was amazing as well. Very emotional, very real, just a 10 out of 10 scene in the game and in the show. And now for the last episode. It starts off with Ellie's mother Anna ready to give birth, but an infected is chasing her. We really feel the panic in her, and even though I knew that she was obviously going to survive and give birth to Ellie, I still felt really panicked. I also love that we finally got to understand Marlene and Anna's relationship. I don't know if in the game, or at least I don't remember them mentioning the relationship, but it's very nice that we got to see it in the show. We then get the very well-known giraffe scene, and some more emotional and amazing dialogue between Joel and Ellie. The scene is so simple, but yet it's great. Simplicity sometimes is really the best option for an amazing scene. In the game, after we would see Ellie talking to Joel for a bit and then giving him a picture of him and Sarah together. But here they changed it and they replaced it with a scene of Joel explaining how he failed to off himself. And I like that change. It's still just a shame that we didn't get to see a picture between Joel and Sarah, but it got replaced by a very good emotional scene, so that's fine. Joel and Ellie then get taken by the Fireflies inside the hospital, and then we get him and Marlene talking about Ellie's surgery. This scene was okay. I mean, it felt a bit rushed. Not the whole hospital scene, but only this scene between Joel and Marlene. It wasn't as good as in the game, but it was still okay, but it just felt a bit rushed. We then get to see Joel clearing the hospital of Fireflies to go and save Ellie, and we get some more of badass Joel, which I don't understand why they didn't make him this way for the whole season, but it is what it is. We also get to see Jerry the doctor getting shot in the face, which is always a plus. There's also the parking lot scene between Marlene and Joel, and the scene felt a bit weird again. Both actors didn't have as much emotion as in the game. Like when Joel is about to shoot Marlene, the way he says, you just come after her. It just felt robotic, but it still was okay, but again, a bit robotic. After that, we get the car scene where Joel lies to Ellie and everything. This wasn't much different than in the game, except that he mentioned that the place got raided afterwards and he had to get out of there urgently and everything. Then the final scene of the episode, which is Joel and Ellie talking just before going back to Jackson, and it was a good scene. The pretty good ending, same as in the game, so I absolutely fucking loved it. No complaints from me. Loved The Last of Us story. Now to finish things off, let me talk more generally about things that I liked or didn't like. Now, like mentioned before, the show sets up the world of The Last of Us very well. The infected are really well done. It's just a shame that we don't see them a lot, but I understand why. Now, like I said, sometimes the acting did feel a little bit robotic. I don't think there was any scene except for maybe Sarah's death that was better than in the game in terms of emotion. But that's probably the only real complaint. I saw many people saying that the show felt rushed, and while I do agree to an extent, there is a reason for that too. Most of The Last of Us is just gameplay, so they have to replace that a little bit, but they can't replace all of it. Because if you think about it, the hospital section is just two cutscenes and gameplay. So of course they weren't going to make us see Joel sneak his way into the surgery room and everything. I also want to mention the cameos from the actors in the games. That was a nice little touch. We got to see Troy Baker, Ashley Johnson, etc. And that's really good to see that the actors from the games were involved in this project as well. Another thing that I loved was that they kept the original soundtrack to the game. The soundtrack of The Last of Us is one of the best in video games, so hearing it again in the show was incredible. But at the end of the day, that's just my opinion, and it's totally fine if you have another. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of My Opinion on. Please like and subscribe to keep up with my future videos, and do not hesitate to comment on things I could improve on. Bye now.